We'd like to welcome each and every individual to Voices of Integrity. And we're with Fritz again. Fritz, have you been as excited as I am for this podcast, or is it just me?
Well, Mark, I'll be honest with you. Rough morning, so it might have been just you. I had to cut some conversations short and tell them, hey, I got another meeting I got to get to. So I've been mildly distracted.
Well, I have been massively distracted. That's why I was hoping that I'd get to this and you'd bring some peace and harmony to my life.
Well, I'll try. It's a nice day outside. I'm in northern Indiana. It's a nice day outside, so maybe there's a little peace in that sunshine that we've been looking for.
Oh, for sure. For sure. And, I was looking out over, I was having breakfast and looking out over the river. So we've got 4 acres right on the river, about 500 foot of, riverfront, and it's flooded and it's going down and it's just absolutely beautiful. So it's a wonderful, wonderful day. Is there anything on your mind that you'd like to cover in today's podcast, Fritz?
Well, I've had something heavy on my mind the last couple of days, and sometimes when that happens, I figure it might be worth talking about. That's as a business owner, as a CEO, the responsibility to hold your managers accountable. I think we touched on this last time we talked. I hope I don't sound like a broken record, but I, sometimes I'm a little, I just hesitant, or I just don't want to go have that man to man talk with one of the managers and say, hey, what you're doing is not really what I had in mind. Um, Sometimes it's easier to just accept things the way they are, but normally they escalate and get worse, and then other managers start to say, well, if that's how things are going to be run, then this ought to be okay. So those are the type of I'm sorry, those are the type of things I've been battling with the last couple of days. So maybe you'd offer some insight on the approach. On It's easier to correct a lower level employee sometimes, but a high level manager or somebody in the C suite, sometimes it's a little awkward to confront those individuals. And I don't know, is it because they're highly talented individuals? Is it because we probably are already we made that decision to put them there, and now, yeah,
Right? It's
I don't
all
even know.
like that's the beautiful thing about owning a company is you got nobody to, it's so much like a dad, being a dad. Like you got nobody to blame but yourself. You're like, you know what?
Exactly.
I am the issue. And I think the thing that's hard is it's like you don't even know like what you're supposed to do. Like we're coming up June 17th here. And on the fifth anniversary of our oldest son's death. And I didn't realize it was, the fifth one, anniversary. And so our whole family, it's like shockwaves. It's so weird. And it's like, and so much of that I think is like owning a company too, where you're like, God, if I screwed up, like I want to know it. Because if you don't fix it, it only gets worse. Like it's like a leak in your house, like a pipe leak. It's not going to fix itself. It's just going to have more damage.
Yeah, you're right.
And it's not black and white. I mean, it's like you wish it was black and white. You wish it was like, okay, is this my issue? Is it somebody else's issue? Tom Kuntz, like, he's a friend and mentor of mine, and he and I co-authored the book. His name will come up a lot on most all of my podcasts. The guy's just a freaking genius. He's in his probably early 70s, mid 70s, something like that. But he said, somebody asked him, when do you fire somebody? And he said the day you drive into the parking lot and you go ahead and hate going into the office. You're like, man, I don't want to go into the office because of this person, you know? And
Yeah.
but the thing is, and so like what's weird is, I mean, I'm so glad I've been blessed with 7 kids and now 10 grandkids because it helps me in business a lot. And business helps me hopefully be a better dad and a better grandfather. But it's weird because I found that with my kids, not today, of course, because they're adult children, so I'm all good now. But with teenagers, it's weird because I'd take ownership of something and they'd say like, "Yep, Dad, it's your fault." And it's like, well, some part of it's my responsibility. But it's like when in business too, the same thing. You take ownership and people will say, "Yeah, that's your issue." And it's like, well, some percentage of it is.
Yeah, and it's always difficult to my biggest struggle is, am I getting the wrong impression or am I reading this right? I don't want to go and you know confront a guy and then come to find out, well, I didn't have all the facts or I didn't know everything. I didn't, I was had a totally skewed point of view and things weren't even the way I thought they were going to be because, we get into this certain way of thinking and we
Well,
tend to assume
you
that we're correct.
you have an advantage and a disadvantage. We had last Saturday, we had the coffee connection, and I'm telling you, that thing just spun my head. I'm still reeling from it. I mean, it's just like there was so much. And I think as business owners that we often feel alone, like we often are like there it seems like it's so complicated. Like, okay, what's my responsibility? What's somebody else's? How do you see, last podcast we have, it just touched my heart, about what you were saying about your daughters, your 2 daughters, and your wife. And I'm like, man, that dude's he's just a good dad. Like, that's just good. That's just good dadding right there. Like, that just, like, how do you have the wisdom to be able to do it? There's a new project I'm working on with a bunch of people. It's called Addicted to Lazy. And it's a white paper. And it's really making me think. Like, it's really challenging how I think. And so, Life Masteries Institute, they're a nonprofit organization. I do a ton of volunteer work for them. They're a wonderful organization. And they've got a whole library of white papers that are, so white papers are, if you're listening and you're not sure what a white paper is, it's typically a short, like a book report, or, it's 3 to 5 pages. Some are longer, some are shorter, but it's a thought on a particular topic. And then there's Q&A. So there might be 3 to 5 pages of the topic. And then there's, maybe 15, 20 pages of questions and answers. And I think a lot of times especially maybe if you're raised Baptist or Amish, um, Baptist it's like, I'm thankful for my conservative Baptist training, but it's like you I struggle with, okay, how do I reconcile that, and how do I go ahead and balance that out, and how does that connect into owning a company? And so patience, Tom, like I was talking to him, I don't know, a number of years ago, it was on Thanksgiving, and we were talking. I said, Tom, what's your biggest challenge? And he said, patience. He says, I lack patience. And I said, well, Tom, actually, you don't. He's like, no, I really do. And I said, no, you don't. We argued back and forth. And finally he said, okay, what do you think it is? I said, I think the people around you have too much patience. And he's like, wow, I never. So it's like, as a leader, as a dad, or as an owner of a company, as a leader, you see people around you that have so much more potential. And you want to bring that out of them, and you're not sure how. The personality masteries, Life Masteries does a lot of that kind of stuff. And that helped me a long time, years ago. you're taught as a Baptist the golden rule: treat other people the way you want to be treated. The challenge is people don't want to be treated the way I want to be treated.
Okay.
So you might be thinking, well, how do you want to be treated, Mark? And it's like, well, if somebody thinks I'm an idiot, I just want them to say, Mark, you're an idiot. Like if they think I'm arrogant or stupid, whatever, just be honest. I crave honesty because then I know exactly where people stand and I can go ahead and say, why do you think I'm arrogant? Why do you think I'm an idiot? Why do you think this and this? And so often people aren't honest and they think not being honest is being nice. And that's something, I've been married for 40 years and my wife and I still, I'm like, honey, that's not entirely, you're not being entirely honest with the kids there. Well, I'm being nice. How is not being honest nice? I don't understand it. You have such an interesting personality, Fritz. You have an advantage over me um, because you're much stronger and you're amiable and much stronger and you're expressive. So the people side with you is much stronger. So your advantage you have over, in business is that you're sensitive to people. You have a disadvantage over me in business because you're sensitive to people. And so
Well,
so people will cause you to second guess yourself, and so you don't have all the facts. Well, you never have. The only one who has all the facts is God. So you've got to make the best decisions based on the best information that you have. Um, and that's where it would be interesting. I can, either I or one of my team members will email you over the white paper Addicted to Lazy. It's still being worked on. But what I like to do, Fritz, is I like my kids, my grandkids, and those that I work with to come to their own conclusion rather than me having to come to it for
yeah,
them.
that's true.
And a lot of times people in the C suites, you know, like it's funny, people ask my wife what your husband does for a living, and she's like, I'm not really sure, honestly. And once she came up to the office and she walked by my office, and I was, talking very strongly to a client of ours. And when I got home, she said, "Who are you talking to?" And I said, "Oh, that's Tom Ninnis." And she said, "Isn't he the one that referred us like $260,000 in business in the last 15 months?" I said, "Yep, that's the one." She says, "You can't talk to him like that." And I said, "No, no, no, honey, let me explain something to you. Um, this is why he referred so much business to us because I speak the truth. And if it needs to be in strong words, I can do that too." And she just shook her head. She says, "I don't know why people pay you." And I laughed and I said, "Right, you and the kids get this for free. You don't have to pay anything for it."
Right.
And
That's right.
so, so as executives, as C levels, it's like, people invest, pay a lot to go ahead and be told the truth. And Tom had a principle, so he had, I think it was 160,000 agents in 70 different countries. And he had a rule he called the man with the briefcase from 100 yards away. And when he introduced that concept, I said, "What is that?" And he said, "Well, Mark, nobody would listen to me." Like, I'm like, wow, that's how I feel. Like nobody listens to me. And he's like, yeah, he says, nobody listened to me. So what I'd do is I'd find out what it is that I wanted the message to get. Then I would hire a consultant or a trainer or teacher, somebody outside the organization, the man with the briefcase. And I'd
Yeah.
have them come in and they would tell, my employees, my C-level executives, they would tell them what I told them or tried to tell them, but they won't listen to me, but they will listen to an expert, somebody coming in from outside.
Isn't
And
it great how the further away a guy is, the more he seems like an expert? Like
right.
if we
See,
hire somebody from California to do our marketing for us, we assume he's an expert. I'm
well,
not
see,
sure.
well, see, I can explain that to you because I've thought a lot about this because when we lived in the Chicago suburbs, I was asked to speak all around the country, and these associations would fly me in, pay me a lot of money, pay for everything, and I'd come in as a speaker, and all over the country. Specifically, I went in a lot of different industries, but at that time I was really, really big in the mortgage industry. I used to own a mortgage company, and the executive director for the Illinois Association of Mortgage Brokers, he and I were talking, and he said, Mark, you're probably wondering why we don't have you speak like every year. We have you speak every 3 years. I'm like, I guess. And he said, because the members want to have somebody coming in from outside Illinois. So a prophet's never honored in their own country. So it's like, I thought a lot about this. Like, people, it's kind of strange, but I get a lot of people telling me how smart I am. I don't think I'm smart at all. God told me when I was 8 that I was average to below average, and I never forgot that. So I didn't do good in school, so I don't think I'm smart. But at the age of 40, everybody started telling me how smart I was. And, when you go 40 years with not even your mom telling you you're smart, you don't know how to respond. You don't want to say, I'm really not, because that disappoints people because they want to listen to smart people. But it's interesting because I thought, like, how many people have told me in front of my kids how smart their dad is? Like, your dad is just a genius. And my kids kind of just roll their eyes. And actually, Alvin was saying something like this too, Alvin Miller. He said
Yeah.
when he turned 15, like before 15, he had a lot of resistance against his dad. And
Okay.
then at 15, he realized that was kind of stupid to have resistance against your dad. And then all of a sudden, he changed everything. And I'm
Okay.
like, that's so strange. And I asked him why. He said, well, other people would tell me how amazing my dad was. And he said, at that time, my dad wasn't wealthy. He said he remembers they were the poorest people in the district. And then all of a sudden, his dad figured something out and they became the wealthiest people in the district. And he said, I feel bad about that because I saw how they treated us differently.
Hey, Mark, tell me, did he expand on that thought? How did they treat him differently? It's interesting because it happens. I know it happens. It's hard to explain. It's hard to identify, but
What's
was Alvin
interesting,
able to
what's
put it
even
into
more,
words?
what's even more interesting about that is, and you and I have never met in person. We need to do that, or I think we might have a lunch or something. So I look forward to meeting you in person. But he went ahead and said that his younger brother didn't go through that. He was too young, and so he never experienced the dichotomy, the difference between that. And so Alvin's very sensitive to the difference, and so it's almost like I was one of the individuals I was coaching was years ago was the president, the wife's president of Moody Bible Institute out of Chicago. So they had moved and they were in Nashville. And I asked her, I said, what's your biggest challenge? She was in real estate. So we were coaching her. And I said, what's your biggest challenge? And she said, Mark, I don't know if people are my friend because they're my friend or if it's because I'm the wife of the president of Moody Bible Institute.
Huh.
And so I have been blessed to coach, mentor, be friends with a lot of very influential and affluent people, and they do think differently. The ones that I've connected with have all come from humble backgrounds. So they're very humble people, but very, very successful in business and often in life. And it's like, but people are when people know that you have money or power or both, it's like they treat you different. It's like they don't challenge you as much typically.
You're right. I agree with that. Sometimes they assume that because we were right in business or we did well in business, then we can make other decisions. And the only thing that's correct about that is we're probably not afraid to make a decision. I always tell our group leaders that you're going to be making 100 decisions a day, whereas the regular production guy is only going to make about 10. So percentages tell me you're going to be wrong more often than the production guy. That's okay because you're making 10 times as many decisions. And I think that's the thing that's why people, that's why they treat us different because there's a different persona. Here's most business owners or most successful business owners have stepped out kind of into nowhere and just kind of depended on their own abilities to succeed or knew that God was watching over them and were thinking like, why wouldn't he want me to succeed? I'll just make the move and I'll let God decide, how successful I am. But there's people like when other people make decisions and people like to ask other people sometimes they want to know. Oftentimes they just want affirmation that their own thoughts are on the right track or that, yeah, that's what I would have done. But you know, they know the right answer, they know the right decision, but they're happy to let someone else do it, which is okay. There's nothing wrong with that. But I think that's why they treat us different
Well,
because,
well, I think there's a lot of. I think it's complex. I think there's a lot of times they want something from us and they don't even know they want it.
okay, I'll go for that. But I struggle to say they want something from us. I guess I don't experience that a whole lot. And I have friends in Ohio and Pennsylvania that that tell me different. They feel like they say there's like a jealousy there. I don't know of a better word, a jealousy there or a hey, I want what you have. But I don't know that I experience that a whole
Well,
lot.
well
Maybe I
that's
just
that's your amiable personality. You're like my wife. You just believe the best in people. Like
well,
it's there. Your wife sees it when people come and take loans from you and don't pay them back. Like your wife sees it, and it probably frustrates her a little bit. But you have this wonderful gift to see the good in people.
actually you're right, Mark. I got to jump in here and tell you I do get a lot of loan requests or a lot of charity requests and people want this, people want that, and that's okay. And she's like, why do they always come to you? And I said, well, why wouldn't they? They need money and I've got money. Why wouldn't they come to me? That's where you go. If you need something, you go to where it is. I said, it's okay. That's what it's for. Money's useless unless you use it. I said, what? I keep telling my kids about this quote that I've seen somewhere. It said, he who dies with the most toys still dies. I said, that's very relevant. I mean, I'm
Right.
uh, not going down there in that hole with some stock options or you know or
But
with some bank notes. I mean,
well, it's
it's the
interesting
use.
because my son, who's 26 years old, and so he works at Grand Design. And it's interesting because some bigwig from Winnebago came in, and he and some of the others and his manager's manager, the branch or the plant manager were there. And my son, he's an interesting kid. He's just interesting. And he's like, so he said to the guy from Winnebago, the top executive from Winnebago, and he said, I just want to thank you for all your hard work and the sacrifices you make. And and the guy was like, what? And then he thanked him and he says, why are you thanking me? He says, because I'm married and I own a house and I have and this is a great place to work. And you help make that all happen. And I'm appreciative of you and I want to thank you. And the guy's like, I've never had that happen before. Like that's never happened. And then the plant manager came up to my son Ben and he said, um, he's like, Ben, you were one of those really rich, English kids, weren't you? Where you just got given everything. And Ben's laughing. He's like, what? Have you seen my car? Have you seen my parents' cars? Like, what are you? We're not poor, but we're not real. We're not. I mean, by the world standards, we're very wealthy. But anyways, and he's like, why would you say that? Like, why would you say that? What causes you to think that I'm come from a really well and everything was given to me? Why would you say that? And he's like, well, your dad knows all of these really successful people all around the world. So people are funny, people are interesting.
Well, I can see where the concept comes from. I mean, they figure you hang around with rich people, you rub shoulders with rich people, you converse with them, you must be one of them. And you are in a sense, maybe just on different
Right.
checking account
Wealth
levels or
comes
something.
in
Who cares?
many, yeah, wealth comes in many different nuances.
Correct. Correct.
And so there's wealth, financial and material wealth, and then there's spiritual wealth, and then there's relational wealth, and then there's moral wealth, and then there's relational wealth, and then there's mental and emotional wealth. And so wealth is comes in many different nuances, many different things. I think next time I'm going to ask Elaine if she can schedule a double podcast for us, because this one I've got to run, but you probably do too. But it's like double podcasts are like not twice as exciting. They're like 10 times. Like the first 30 minutes of the podcast is warming up. Then you get into some real meat, something that's significant, that's life changing. Like my kids are like, Dad, like everything changes your life. Like everything's life changing. Like when you're out with one of the grandkids and you're by the pond or you're fishing or there's a flower, and it's like, well, why wouldn't you be like that too? And it's almost like I've got to train them how to think in a way that it seems like maybe is counterintuitive or counterhuman. Anything else, Fritz, you have in closing here? This has been fun. Man, these things are cool.
I don't like I say, I like to talk about business, and you asked about uh, hearing you talk about how business is almost like being a family member. I One thing I would like to share though, I think business is very, very easy compared to being a dad. I mean, if it gets too bad, you can always say, I'll just go get a job, or you can fire that guy and move on. I don't know that you can fire your 20-year-old son that's really getting on your nerves, but maybe there's a way to do that. I haven't found one.
I have
But
not found one. Like,
I'd like to sometimes I just want to do a do-over, but I don't think you get those either. So
so there's a you don't know me well enough, so I won't invite you, but there's a podcast I do with another gentleman that's a little older than me. So I'm 61, he's 64, I think it is. And he's been very successful in business. He has 5 boys and a girl, and it's called White Males Over 50. And I'm telling you, the stories that he has of being a dad are just heartbreaking. I mean, it's just like, you got to be kidding. So it's like my therapy session where where I'm like you try to do, what you were taught to do, and then all of a sudden it doesn't seem to work with the kids, and you're like, God, have like my dad, I have 5 siblings, and my dad said the problem with kids is you don't figure out what you did wrong until it's too late.
yeah, he's correct. But did we do it wrong? We don't know.
We don't know.
I've I've often wondered, if we did it again, we'd probably really screw it up.
Right. Right.
But
We try to fix it the other way. And, I
yeah,
don't know. Like, it's interesting. It's interesting because at my dad's funeral, my oldest brother went ahead and he and I were talking, and his kids came up to him after our dad died and said, Dad, are you okay? Are you okay? He's like, yeah. And he's like, why? And he's like, well, your dad died. And I said, that's weird. My kids did the same thing to me. He's like, he's laughing. I'm laughing. I'm like my dad wasn't real close to us. Like it wasn't one of those, he wasn't raised in an age where you're really close to your kids. And my brother said, I wonder if our dad did it a lot better than us. Life goes on.
Yeah.
And so it's so true where you're like, and then the world is changing around us so fast. And how do we interact with that? So I agree with you that being a dad is infinitely harder and the stakes seem to be so much more. It's, it's crazy. So,
It is.
well, Fritz, thank you so much. Appreciate it. Have a blessed day.
You too. Thanks, Mark.
We'll see you.
See ya.
Bye-bye. Bye. If you're listening to the rebroadcast of this, you have any questions, connect with the individual who invited you to participate in today's session, or you can call toll free 888-230-2300 outside the U.S. 630-393-9909. And always remember, we can accomplish so much more together than we ever could on our own. God bless and have an amazing day. Bye-bye.